Happy Friday. Absolutely.
Let's see. And I am actually here in New Orleans.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
You wearing a hat or are you going to go big hair today?
No hat today.
No hat today?
The famous hats, right?
Exactly. And for some reason, I don't understand why. Let's see if we can do this. Start video. Okay, so it looks like my camera settings is doing some funky things right here, but definitely want to get started. And I know that we got the eyes and ears, and we have Eric Range, the CEO and founder of Art 420, is our guest today, as well as the board of director chairperson for Minorities for Medical Marijuana, and bringing Eric on from his perspective, because we're going to be talking about diversification of businesses and what that means in this space. And I was just blown away by a chart that showed the top 25 revenue generating businesses in this space. And we're going to talk about that a little bit and figure out exactly, for the folks that are trying to figure out how to get into the business, where they need to sit, what things they need to do. We're going to have that conversation. So, Eric, if you can just start out and tell a little bit about how you got into the industry and how you felt like diversification from the onset was where you want to go versus touching plant and where that took you from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. Let me first and foremost say, Roz, what a pleasure it is to be on here with you. I know a lot of people see you out and about doing a lot of good work, but, I know what goes on behind the scene, and I know how much effort and passion and time that you put into everything that you do in this industry. You really are a trailblazer. And, there'll be a lot of people who become, in my opinion, who will become millionaires because of the work and the groundwork that you've laid for them. So, again, I just want to say thank you, and thank you for having me on.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So Art 420, man, we started back in 2015. And, it's funny because I just put a post on LinkedIn. My wife had sent me this video. I don't know. I have a love-hate relationship with technology, and it went into her phone and kind of took, a collage of pictures and made a video out of these pictures that we took in back in 2015 when we were on a ski trip out in Colorado. And, that trip, the video she just sent to me just to have like, a little memory of, what that time was like and how far we've come. But it was a week after that trip that I actually came back and we started Art 420. Prior to that time, my wife and I had looked into a lot of different aspects of the industry, and we definitely were looking at what was going to be our access point. One of the first things that we quickly eliminated was the whole touching flower. There was a couple of reasons why we chose not to go down that path. One of them being because of, just simply oversaturated. I'm one of those people who tend to think that, if everybody else is doing it, then I probably shouldn't be doing it. And so, we looked at that factor in the industry. We looked at California, we looked at Colorado, and we saw, that the cultivation side of things, the dispensing side of things, and even the processing and manufacturing was something that we felt was just going to be oversaturated. It was just going to it was going to attract everybody to the industry. When you think about this industry, the first couple of things you think about is growing the plant and selling the plant. But I've often told people that you can't have an industry without the ancillary businesses that prop up that industry. At best you have just a business, a single business. And so, we looked at the ancillary space. We looked at what we can do outside of, the parts of the industry that actually touch flower. And one of the things that we saw that the industry had a image problem. And so we decided to use fine art in order to challenge those stereotypes about cannabis users, as well as, really begin to present a counter message to prohibition. I tell the story often about when I was doing my research on the cannabis industry, I came across a article from a Harvard researcher, and the picture that was associated with it was a young girl in bra and panties with a bong sitting between her legs. And I said, that's the problem we have with this industry. This is why people don't take this industry serious, because here it is, an article talking about research and the image that is associated with it is a young stoner type image. And so through the art, we use the platform to educate people about the plant, as well as to present the industry with a solution to its immature image, if you will, and provide a very mature image with art that was created specifically for this industry and for professional businesses.
That's awesome. So when you first got going, how did you start your business? What did you do, like in regards to just forming, getting a bank account, putting the idea, coming up with your logo? I mean, where'd you get that? Your I guess what was your inspiration?
Yeah, first and foremost, it was the stories that we heard. The stories we heard in Colorado were very similar to the stories that we were familiar with here in Florida, and those are stories of people who contribute to society in positive ways, and they're cannabis users, they're lawyers, doctors, engineers, teachers, police officers, your next door neighbor. And so, when we came back to Florida after that trip, the first thing we sat down to do is really kind of write out, what is the idea? We have this thing that we want to do, but we don't quite know, what's the path to take. So we started by just sitting down, having a brainstorming session and kind of figuring out all the different angles that we could go. What was the low hanging fruit? What we're going to, what were some of the opportunities that were going to, require a lot of investment or, things that we can do with sweat equity. And so, we kind of wrote it out, we laid out our plan, and then we began to move. And, one of the things that we also did that I encourage people to do is actually utilize your network. Many people, before they get into this industry, they've been in professions for decades, or they've developed a strong network of professionals that can assist them. And so, when I think about the Art 420 logo, and I'm wearing it right now, we went to one of my good friends, one of my fraternity brothers, and I asked him, I say, listen, I need a logo, create a logo for this company, Art 420. And he did that for us at a relatively low price. And, I'm proud to say that, Art 420's logo is one of, I think, maybe 10 to 12 actually federally copyrighted logos with the cannabis leaf involved in it. So, we're unique in that regard. A lot of companies haven't been able to get their copyrights approved. And so, we have just taken the steps that we thought were, going to be the best steps for us, and trying to bring in as many of our friends and family as we can, and utilizing their skill sets and helping us to grow.
Right. Absolutely. So the moral of the story here is, one, you have to basically stop talking about it and make a move.
And stop lying to yourself.
Exactly. And so I would say this, in regards to your passion and for what you do, I mean, you knew that it was just it was a no-brainer because you like art, and art is something that you feel passionate about. Can you speak on the idea of passion and what you're good at already and how to translate that over to the cannabis industry?
Absolutely, man. I think you and I both probably get this question quite often. How do I get into this industry? How can I best get into it? And in fact, I just had a conversation with a young lady just yesterday. She's out in Texas, and out in Arizona. And she's looking to get into the industry. She's been kind of teetering on the fringes for the last couple of years, but she was thinking about going back to school to become a nurse practitioner so that she can get involved in the medical marijuana field. And, I'm not, I didn't want to discourage her if that was the plan that she laid out for herself. But, I began to ask her a few questions in regards to what she already has done, in terms of, where does your skill set come from? What industries have you participated in prior to getting into this industry? I tell people, don't abandon the skills that you already have. You may have gone to school for those. You may have paid tons of money in order to get your degree in that area. You may have had jobs that have given you the background and expertise to be able to, utilize those skills. So don't abandon those just to go and learn new skills. Like if you've never grown a tomato in your life, then probably cultivating cannabis isn't what is for you. Cultivating cannabis is a science. And if you haven't, been familiar with that side of it, then that might not be your way into the industry. So I think people are having the greatest success when they're doing what they already know how to do, when they've recognized how the skills that they already have can be transferable to the cannabis industry. And that takes some time to, sit down and do some research, learn about the industry, learn about some of the trends that are happening in the industry, learn about the gaps in the industry. What is the industry not seeing that will eventually be a part of this industry, and how can you begin to, set yourself in that space and position yourself for when the time, comes. But yeah, utilizing the skills that you already have is going to cut down on your headache. It's going to cut down on the amount of money you spend, and really cut down on your time of actually entering this industry. So take some time, think about what you know how to do. What is your strongest skill set, and how can that offer some value to companies in this industry?
So that's what we're going to talk about today. All right. So guys, listen, you're on the phone or you're either on Zoom. I want to make sure that you're asking questions. Make sure that if you have a question, you can either send it as a question, you can raise your hand in chat and actually ask a question live. But this is about you and about making sure that you have the opportunity to figure out exactly where your place is. And I have some folks on here that come on, and I appreciate you guys for listening to me. I'm bringing on experts, people that are here that can answer and can help you navigate through this. So I want to talk about, there was a article that came out, and it was the top 25 cannabis revenue generating companies in the industry right now. And I want to go through, and Eric is going to help me talk about this, and we're going to have a conversation about what type of businesses these are and how you guys can really create a connection to these industries. Even though they are now starting to mature, they're making money. I want to show you something. Let's start off with Kush Bottles. Kush Bottles. Okay, so Eric, tell them about Kush Bottles and what type of company this is.
Well, I don't know if I've done as much research on Kush Bottles, but, I guess the funny thing about it is, we're talking about bottles. We're not even talking about cannabis, and I think that's one of the things people have to realize. And it goes back to the statement I just made. It's not always about how we're touching the flower, but how are we serving the companies that do. And everybody has to, in fact, when it comes to getting the licensing for a medical marijuana, in particular on the medical marijuana side of things, your packaging and labeling is very, very important. And so how do you serve that? And how do you, find companies that can provide those things in child safe bottles? And, how do you, set up your labeling so that it's very clear who the product is intended for, how it's intended to be used, and who the product is not for. And, Kush Bottles is one of those, companies out there who are providing a service. Back in the gold rush, we had people who were selling buckets and shovels. Well, Kush Bottles would be one of those companies that are selling the containers that cannabis is actually being sold in. You have others who are doing very similar things with bottles, who are creating on the consumer side of things, the bottles that once you get your cannabis and you take it home, what do you store it in? Do you store it in the bag or whatever, container that you bought it in at the store? So that side of the business, again, is not touching flower. It doesn't fall under the same regulations that you see when it comes to medical marijuana licensing and recreational licensing and so on. These are just, industry, businesses and that serve the entire industry, and they can position themselves and they can do different things to differentiate themselves from other companies who are doing very similar things, but they can do that with a lot less red tape, if you will.
Exactly. So let's talk about Kush Bottles, where again, it's a packaging company. They have a proprietary packaging that's utilized in California that they were able to get in, so that certain products have to be utilized their technology. So they have a patent on packaging. It is and packaging is not only where the medicine goes in, but it's also the box, the container. And so they were able to start out and create a business and a business model focused only on packaging and only on being able to provide that type of support for these businesses and all these cannabis companies. So I want to talk. Go ahead.
Well, if I could say something else about that, I don't know the history of Kush Bottles, but I'm willing to bet whoever started the company, their background was probably in some type of product, packaging. They took what they already knew how to do and began to market it to this industry. packaging and labeling and those kind of things it's not something that's just new for cannabis. That's something all businesses have to think about when you think about businesses that sell products. They have to think about, what type of products are in it. Where is that packaging coming from? How is it presenting? How does it present on a shelf? How does it get customers to buy my actual package? And so Kush Bottles, I think, has really focused their attention on that side of it. They know that as a industry, businesses are going to need solutions for how to package their products in a way that gets it to come off of the shelf, and into the hands of their consumers.
Exactly. So if you want to go, and we'll take this as an example, let's think about this. You have a company, and let me tell you what the stats are with this company. So this company did, for quarter ending May 31st, 2018, they did $12 million in sales. Year-to-year growth. So from last year to this year, they had 173% growth. So your question would be, okay, so they got theirs. How do I get mine? Well, one thing that you guys got to think about is that these companies, they're companies nevertheless, and they need suppliers. They need support. They need additional things in order to perform as a business. So if you look at like a supplier channel, I would research this company and even reach out to them. And this is why I want to teach you guys to be able to look at the company itself and go, what do they need to be successful that they got to outsource for? So if you're in an IT field and you're a technology consultant, think about how you take your technology consultant expertise and how you could reach out to a Kush Bottle and you tell them, say, I'm a member of Minorities for Medical Marijuana. I'm a member of the Black Cannabis Network. We see the business that you're doing and we see that you're growing. And as a business owner, as a consultant, I want to grow with you and I want to understand what is there opportunities to contract with my company. You cannot sit in a box and sit in a bubble and think they're going to come looking for you. You gotta put yourself out there, and you gotta go and you have to pitch yourself. 10 times you pitch yourself, if you get 1 to 2 responses in return, you're doing really well. So that's one of the key things that you guys got to figure out, that is the ancillary part. So if you're an attorney, if you're someone that is, if you are a marketing or social media executive or consultant or what have you, think about how could you go and pitch them and say, there's a demographic of people that I serve, that I focus on social media on. I think that you would, it would be huge to have connectivity with them. How can we get you connected? That's what I'm a consultant. That's what my expertise is in. And that's where your opportunity is to open up doors that you haven't thought about before, and that you don't touch plant, and that you go in and you partner and you become a supplier within these organizations.
I mean, and to add to that, I mean, I think that's the approach to try to work with Kush Bottles, but I also think it's the approach to work with other companies. The reality of it is there's too many companies out there. Kush Bottle can't serve them all, and even if they could, we should be considering how do we not create that monopoly, because that only increases prices, and the end user product then becomes more expensive as well. So I mean, there are companies out there right now in our minority community who are probably doing exactly what Kush Bottles does, just for another industry. All it takes is for you to begin to, do a little research and understand how you can start marketing to this industry. But absolutely, if you want to work with Kush Bottles or any other company, I think it's a matter of pitching yourself and putting yourself in a position and showing them why it's important to work. And when you're a minority, whether you're ethnic minority or a woman or a veteran or someone with disabilities, it helps them. It helps their cause. And so you should be very vocal about that fact, that by working with you or your company, they're not only getting a valuable service, but they're also being able to, tap into a underserved community and underserved populations which helps them on applications, which helps them in their corporate social responsibility. It just helps them overall on their bottom line as well. Being able to communicate and market into minority communities, having a diversity supplier will help them, when they talk about that, when they try to reach into these communities, they'll have some footing to do so.
Okay, so let's talk about another company. Let's go away from Kush Bottle. Okay. There's a company, it's called CV Sciences. CV Sciences, was number 2 on the list. and they did over quarter ending 6/30/2018. They did $12 million in sales in one quarter. They're up 203% year-to-year growth. So let me tell you what CV Sciences do. They're a CBD company. They provide CBD. So how many of you guys have looked at this from a retail standpoint? Have you thought about, if you're interested in the industry, have you thought about CBD? Have you done your research on finding out, is CBD legal in your state? I want some people, you guys, I need to hear from you. I need you to tell me, where do you want to be? Ask that question and let's figure this out together, because this time is so valuable having Eric. But if you've had CBD companies that you see that are out there, if you know of, if you're not familiar with CBD, there's a book on Amazon. It's called CBD. It's a white book and it has CBD like right across the top, and it talks about the science and the medicine behind CBD. You guys need to research that and look at that as an alternative. If you want to look at the fact that our communities of color, do not know what CBD is, they don't have the education, they don't understand the health benefit, they don't understand that it's different than medical marijuana or cannabis, that it doesn't have the THC in there that give you that euphoria high, that you can be an employee and take, and you can that you can be able to withstand a drug test if necessary by taking CBD, because there's the THC level in CBD is negligible. It's less than 0.03%. So if you take a test and a urinalysis and they're looking for if there is, let's say marijuana in your system, the thing about this is that THC is what they're testing for. THC in a CBD derived from hemp is 0.03%. Therefore, if you have people that are suffering from pain management issues, they're suffering from diabetes, it's such a great healthcare supplement. And so what people are taking advantage of is the fact that you have states that don't have a medical marijuana program. And what they're doing is they're going and saying, you know what, I'll derive CBD from hemp and I'll be able to provide a solution. And also, if there's someone that doesn't want to, if they're concerned about taking medical marijuana, I'll educate them on CBD. And there's a lot of CBD brands out there that you can take a look at. And guess what? They would be interested if you create your own online store. You actually put some type of, you created a brand for your store. If your store was, health and wellness is king, and you focus only on CBD, and you went to these different vendors and you said, I would like to do an affiliate marketing program with you. I would like to put your content on my website. I'm going to push it out to my people. And I will, if my people buy your product, I'll get a percentage of that revenue that comes in. And you guys right now in the position that you're in is just business 101. You can do that. You can reach out. You can pitch them. I see you, Eric. I know you're shaking your head. Any comments about that and what that looks like?
Yeah, I was going to say, the CBD side, again, offers you in many regards, not all regards. You have to do your homework, but it offers you a way around some of the regulation that you find in the medical marijuana licensing programs, as well as the recreational licensing programs, which at times can be very costly, can require a lot of, experts to be on board and so on. But right now, there's been an explosion in this country when it comes to the availability of CBD products. And so that means not only can you, go a route that ROZ just mentioned in terms of, partnering with them, and you kind of help promote their products and you get, a percentage, but you also have white labeling, where people are making these products and they will sell it to you. You put your own label on it and you market your own products. And now you have a brand that is out there as well. But, I've even talked to podiatrists and other doctors who are looking at, well, how can I, utilize this in my own practice? How can I get this to be a part of my own practice in terms of, I already sell some type of pain cream or some other type of thing. Can I now put this CBD in my, clinic and now create another revenue stream for myself in this business? And so those are the things we have to think about. So you don't even have to be, a doctor. I mean, I know barbers who have a little display case set up inside the shop and, you know, they're selling CBD to people who come into the barbershop. You know, they're taking, you know, the raw CBD products and they're creating their own products, whether it be healthcare and beauty products. Now, those things obviously take a little bit more time, you know, more research, more capital in order to do some of those other things. But I guess the point that I want to make is that there's so many avenues for you, you know, within this entire space, whether it be under the medical marijuana, whether it be under recreational or under the CBD. There's tons of opportunities for you guys, and even low hanging fruit. But you guys got to, you know, really jump into it and, you know, take the chance to learn about it and, you know, learn about where the different opportunities are in the space.
Absolutely. I think we have a question. We have a hand raised. Let me hold on one second because this is so key and so important. Let me just double check here. Okay, so it says, I'm a psychotherapist and I would like to offer this in a smoothie bar. Any thoughts about that? And that's from Ms. Ward. And what do you think about that? She's a psychotherapist. So let's talk about what a psychotherapist, you know, what their expertise is. And she would like to offer this in a smoothie bar. Does it make sense? I think it's a great opportunity.
I mean, you know, mental health is one of the things I think where we're seeing a paradigm shift in the thinking of mental health practitioners in their way of thinking about CBD and medical marijuana. We are, you know, for a long time, we have been talking to that community, you know, whether it be psychiatrists, whether it be, you know, psychologists and other therapists who work in mental health, whether it be for opioid addiction or, you know, there's so many different, you know, mental health areas. I actually come from a mental health background myself as well. And, you know, the applications and what we can do with CBD and medical marijuana, I think we're still, you know, just beginning to scratch the surface. But I'm very happy to see that that community is certainly paying a lot more attention than they were, and they're being much more open-minded about their approach to it. So to answer specifically the question about whether or not it could work, absolutely. The first thing I would tell you to do is check, you know, the laws of your state, see what's happening in your state, see what's going on, you know, whether or not CBD is a part of the medical marijuana program there, whether or not there's some, you know, regulations specifically prohibiting you doing so in your state. And then, you know, from there, I would begin to fleshing out what your business plan is, how much of how much of your raw materials are going to cost you to do that. You know, how are you going to market it out to folks? Where can you get a good, reliable source for, you know, your raw CBD materials that you're going to use? Are you going to use isolates? Are you going to use, you know, oils? Are you going to use salt, you know, water soluble products? You know, what is the actual form of the CBD that you need it in order to do that? So that may take a little bit of research and development with your actual product. You know, what are you going to then turn around and give to the people? You know, this smoothie, how are you going to make it? How are you going to make it consistent? And, you know, I think once you answer a couple of those initial questions, then I would certainly begin to test it out and see what happens. And then from there, look at how do you scale that even beyond your own particular brick and mortar or into other shops and so on. But I like the idea. I think it's you know, there's certainly going to be other, you know, competitors out there doing similar things. But I think, you know, the one thing about this industry is that there's so much room in this industry that I wouldn't get too overly concerned about, you know, all of the other competition. As long as you have a good, viable plan of how you are going to attack this whole thing, I think you'll be just fine.
No, I agree. And let me tell you this, guys, and there's another question that's very similar to this. And the question is, as a massage therapist and a Reiki master, and Reiki is awesome. So, Mr. Sheridan,
I can't say I've had it before. I'm not familiar.
I've had it before, and Reiki is actually it is a massage. It's a especially in the massage area, but it's where they don't touch your body and they use energy. And I will tell you this: I did it one time, and it works. I felt this lady.
I understand the concept just from that. Yeah,
oh my gosh, it was so freaking awesome. Like I thought I'm like, this is really, really interesting. So kudos for you practicing Reiki. I've experienced it, and it does work. So his question is adding CBD to creams and oils. And so what I would do is, like, let's say, for example, you have your own massage therapy practice and you want to go and start adding. So let's say, for example, you have a cream or oil that you use right now, and you just want to be able to buy CBD. And you may say, when you come to my practice, one of the new lines of maybe service I offer is a CBD infused massage. You can do that. You don't have to sell the oil. You just upgrade. So what you do is you upgrade.
I would sell the oil as an upsell product.
So instead of doing a regular massage, you say, well, do you want a CBD infused massage that's going to help with pain relief, blah, 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 blah. You do that. You use your product, and you have to kind of figure out titration wise how much do you use when you're doing your massage and put it in there. But what you want to do is you want to be able to then be able to say, okay, listen, my recommendation is if you are if this is for sore muscles, pain management, or what have you, then you can make a recommendation. You're not prescribing. Remember, guys, even physicians, when it comes to the medical marijuana program, they're not prescribing. They're making a recommendation. A recommendation means based upon my best guesstimate or based upon my expertise or experience, I would recommend this. But that doesn't mean that an individual has to take that for, it's not dosing, it's not like dosaging or things of that nature. You're just making a recommendation. So what you do is, and I would highly recommend, is that you look at your offering for your massage therapies right now. You do a CBD infused. And I will tell you, anytime that you can have something that if you could put an essential oil to it where you get a smell and a CBD, it works. As a woman and as someone who's a consumer, we consume based upon our eyes, our ears, our nose, and touch. When I'm getting a massage, I can't see you, I can feel you, and I can smell. So if you have the hands of God, and then you have a product that's going to make me feel better, and it smells good, I'm buying.
Yeah, I would say there are already some creams out there that, infuse the CBD in it. We have members, Minorities for Medical Marijuana. We have members who actually make creams like that. So again, those are opportunities to where if maybe, developing the product yourself isn't your forte, there are products out there that exist already that you can purchase right now legally and begin to integrate it into your practice. The other side, when you said about the smells, it made me think about the fact that you have companies out there who are focused simply on the terpenes that are associated with cannabis. And so you can then take it, and add the aromatherapy component to it using the terpenes that are derived from the cannabis plant. And so, there's so many different avenues and so on that you can do. We were just both in Boston at the CWCBE, and there was a company there that actually sold the base product for you to then take your CBD and drop in it, and you can take CBD infused, essential oils, and you can put all of that directly in your base gel, and you have a gel product that is already ready to go. But they did some of the early formulations to where all you now have to do is add your CBD or add your eucalyptus oil if you need eucalyptus, or if you want lavender or whatever. You add those things directly to it, and then you're able to have your product already ready made. So there are definitely opportunities for you to create your own space, own products. But then sometimes don't reinvent the wheel. If the products already exist and they're out there, see how you can tap into those, and again, maybe even do some type of partnership to where you're marketing their product and you get a percentage sales off of it, or whatever the case may be. There's a lot of different things that you can do.
Absolutely. So we got a ton of questions that are coming through. Hold on, I got you on mute, so let me hold on. Charles, he has questions for us, so let me unmute him. And if you guys don't know what terpenes are, if Eric says terpenes and you don't know what terpenes are, that's your homework. Go look up terpenes. I'm not going to tell you what it is. Go look up terpenes. You will see that they're beautiful. Oh man, beautiful pieces of the plant. But go look up what a terpene is, and so that when we're talking phraseology, you know what we're talking about as well.
And that's spelled TERPENE, terpene.
Exactly. All right. So we got.
Sounds good. Yeah. Can you guys hear me? Okay.
We can hear you great.
Great. So just a few housekeeping things. Anyone who's in the class, if you want to become more interactive with Roz and Eric, if you raise your hand, we will allow you to talk. So that should be a control on the Zoom side. You just raise your hand so we know that you want to talk. So yeah, Roz, last night, Dashida had an incredible masterclass. Probably over 1,000 people registered and a ton of people showed up, and she powered through the rain, internet connectivity problems, and everything. So we are so backed up on questions that we're just gonna pass some of them over to you.
Absolutely, shoot them my way, and we will. And we have a way to even do a part 2 for next week. Well, let's go. We'll do a rapid fire.
Okay. Oh, so here's a good one. This is from Andrea Albert. I am a registered nurse, an RN, and want to know if legally this could impact my license. If not, how can I proceed in the green rush? And maybe we'll let Eric, you talk first because you had that friend that was a nurse that you were advising.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. Again, I think you first and foremost definitely want to understand your state's laws. Different states, we have a hodgepodge of legislation across the country. And so it's very, very important that you start with understanding the laws in your particular state. And so not knowing exactly what state and the laws that are, in place in that state, I would say that, certainly if you have a medical license, a pharmacy license, any type of professional license, you need to be extremely diligent in your due diligence in making sure that you're going to be you're safe. I never want to steer people wrong in that regard, because that's your livelihood. And so, I understand the question and the need to protect it. So without knowing exactly your state and everything and knowing the exact laws that are in place, I can't answer definitively, but what I will say is there are ways, even with a license, for you to not utilize your license. In case in point, I've had licensed pharmacists who have joined teams to go after applications for medical marijuana in which they just simply did not utilize their license number. So they weren't listed on the license as, pharmacists with license number XYZ. They were just listed as someone with a strong background in pharmacy and so on. Now, when the states, if they were to be awarded, obviously, they have to consider some things in terms of what their approach is going to be. But I think that is something that we all have to consider. Doctors in the space, when they start to turn their attention to this, they have to consider how they're going to set up their businesses, how are they going to integrate it into their practices. And it is a careful dance. I encourage you to seek legal advice in regards to that, in particular if you're someone who has a professional license.
And you know what? And then you can always reach out to us with the Jarvis Project and ROZ. My information is on the Facebook Live, and you can reach out and I can maybe give you more insight. I will tell you this: if you're a nurse, if you're a clinical practitioner, you got to think about, do you want to handle the product or do you want to provide consumer education? Do you want to do clinical research or do you want to be able to administer the product or be a caregiver? So first and foremost, clinically, if you're a nurse, you could, I don't know what your nursing expertise is. Is it from a patient standpoint? Is it a educator? But whatever your expertise is, stay in that lane, stay there and figure out, okay, great, I love education. How can I take my education that I'm doing and now translate that over to the cannabis industry? And if you do that, your license is not in jeopardy. You are just doing a different subject matter that's going to deal with cannabis, medical marijuana, CBDs, things of that nature, and understanding where it plays in for people or for individuals that you want to serve. So I just want to add that to it and go from there.
And really check your state laws too, because some states allow for nurse practitioners to actually make recommendations to patients. Yeah. So not every state is like that. Florida is not one of those, but there are some states out there that, you could very much play the role as a doctor and make those recommendations. So, check
New York and Connecticut are two states that have nurse practitioners. We have a chapter president. She has a business, and shout out to Kebra Smith Bolden. CannaTalk is her business. Google it, CannaTalk. And she's an African-American nurse who does that. She helps and coaches people on understanding the use of cannabis and helping them how to get their medical marijuana card. So there's ways you can do it.
Great. Wow, those were incredible answers. Thank you, Eric and Roz. Let's move on to the next question, and they keep flowing in now. I think you guys have really gotten the juices flowing. So we have Veronica Taylor. Veronica lives in a state that is considering legalizations. She wants to be part of the process, but doesn't know where to start, wants to know, how can I get a seat at the table? How can I leverage it? How do I get in?
Right.
Where do we go?
So what I would say is, one, I am going to always give a shout out to Minorities for Medical Marijuana. Our partnership with the Jarvis Project, it is intentional. We're doing this because we have over 25 chapters throughout the country. We just brought on a young lady in Mississippi. We are in Colorado, in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia. I'll use Missouri as an example. Missouri has a ballot that's going to be an amendment on the ballot in November to pass a medical marijuana program. So we've been already working in Missouri for the past 12 to 18 months, establishing ourselves with the people that are pushing for these laws. Because what you guys got to realize is, if you want to be in this industry, you got to be a social influencer in your state. You got to be the one that go, hey, let me go to Eric, because Eric he knows what's going on. He's engaged. He's talking to people. You use your social media to start engaging people that are in your state. So for example, go to Facebook, put in, if you're in Missouri, put in Missouri medical marijuana or marijuana. There's Facebook pages and groups that are already out there. They're doing work. And if you do that, you start looking, if you look and follow their feeds, you will see groups that you can start attaching yourself, and you can start then talking about what you want to do in the space, or even asking questions in regards to how you can partner. The best thing that you can do for a new state coming on board is to form a collective of people that want to work together, that you may say, oh, I love cultivating, I love educating, I'm a great business person, I can write business plans, and then you guys formalize your partnership and you go after a license together, or you go into business together, or maybe if you feel like I can do it by myself, you go for it, but you want to stay engaged and you want to be on the front end of legalization in your state. So don't wait until it happens. Get involved right now. You can reach out to M4MM and ask if we have a chapter president there. We'll get you involved. And if we don't, you have organizations like Normal, you have Women Grow, you have Drug Policy Alliance, they have local groups, you have Students for Sensible Drug and SSDP, Students for Sensible Drug Policy, SSDP. So there's organizations that you want to be a part of, but I definitely would highly recommend M4MM.
Yeah. And what I would say is this as well: recognize you pay taxes. You have a right to be a part of the process, period. You don't need permission. You don't need to ask anyone to do so. If you have the ability, show up, go to your state legislator, send an email to your district, the senator in your district, to the representative in your district. Participate in the process. That's one of the things with minority communities. We oftentimes don't participate in the process to draft the rules and the policies and legislation. And then we are upset when those things aren't written in a way that makes sense for us. Well, we have to be at the table. We have to be a part of that conversation. I think back, Roz, to election night 2016, you, myself, Tamika, and Mike Freeman, we were the only 4 African Americans in the room at the watch party with John Morgan and his team, the people who wrote our medical marijuana laws here in Florida. And I remember looking at Roz that day and I said, Roz, this is great. This is exciting. Our state is passing this. We passed it overwhelmingly. I said, but at the end of the day, this means nothing for our community if we don't go up to our state capitol and begin to be a part of this process. And so in 2017, she and I drove from Orlando every single week and spent 2 to 3 days in our state capitol, going around, talking to senators, talking to representatives, talking to anybody who would listen about, hey, these laws that you guys are implementing, here's how it impacts my community. Here's why we don't want this. Here's why we want this. And putting out our demands in a certain way. And we walked away from there with a lot of success. But it started because we recognized that, even when you pass a ballot initiative, that the legislator gets to write the rules. And you have to be a part of that rulemaking process, even if your legislator implements the laws without you having to do a constitutional amendment. Guess what? You can be a part of that process. They do hearings, public hearings. Go to those hearings. If you can't go, they always have a way for you to leave public comment online. So do that. Send the email to your senator. Send it to, not everybody's going to be able to do like we did and drive back and forth. And I get that. But that doesn't mean that you can't participate. That doesn't mean that you can't get your family members to participate. We have to recognize that this is our civil rights movement of our time, and that we are the ones, we are the organizations that are going to be the ones that change that. And so, again, I agree with Roz. Join Minorities for Medical Marijuana, because it puts you into an organization and a pipeline of professionals that has a proven track record. We've done this already. You don't have to walk in the door and say, here's what we think we want to do. Here's what we have done in other states. And here's why you can, and here's how you can do it here. So, you know, get involved with the organization and, you know, really and truly just get involved.
Right.
Wow. Well, I love these answers. They're great. Eric, you are amazing. Speaking of election night, I don't know if I mentioned this to you, Roz, but we are actually organizing an event where we will be collaborating with Montel Williams, and we'll be tracking the election, you know, the election process. And I think it's what, 4 or 5 states have various forms of legalization measures on their ballot this November.
Yeah. The major one is Missouri, because Missouri has, St. Louis has a large constituents of African Americans there. And we've been working with Missouri. David Beckford is our chapter president there, as well as Kelly Williams is his co-chapter president. They're based out of St. Louis. We've been working with the NAACP there. I will tell you this, the NAACP in St. Louis has been at the table. So if you're from St. Louis, or if you're in St. Louis, if you hear me right now, a shout out to your NAACP, because they have been holding the folks, it's called to hold them accountable, to make sure that if this amendment passes, that we want to make sure that we're at the table to craft out the rules and regulations. If you are interested in opening up a dispensary or cultivating in Missouri, I think they have a very, very, I would say, open market plan, and it's gonna support a number of people getting the license and not just being very limited. And so Missouri is one. North Dakota has something. There's just not a lot of us there in North Dakota. There's a couple of other states that have some changes, but Missouri is the hot button that we're watching for 2018 in November.
Yeah. And when it comes to elections, though, make no mistake about it. Just because it's not on the ballot doesn't mean it is not on the ballot. Case in point, here in Florida, trust me, we're not voting on medical marijuana right now, but depending on who our governor is, we could be looking at a very, very different medical marijuana program.
Exactly.
So it's not just about when you have a ballot initiative on the table. I mean, here in Florida, we had a judge rule that the current laws that our legislator put into place were unconstitutional. So what does that mean? And our legislator isn't going to do anything about it until we get a new governor, and we might have a new legislator. You never know. So again, even in election cycles where it's not an actual ballot initiative or something that you're voting directly on, pay attention to what the candidates are saying about it, because it does have an impact. So you have to look at the entire thing and not just where it's on the ballot.
Exactly.
Wow. So, geez, time has just flown by. I think let's go to, we'll go into the class in the Zoom. We have Erica Carmichael. So we'll switch a little bit from legal and regulatory into more nuts and bolts. Erica is asking, which online store platforms are receptive to selling CBD oils? For example, Amazon prohibits selling it online. And I think that's probably a big challenge, because you can't advertise this stuff. You can't talk about it. You're going to get banned. Let's throw it in the ring. See how you guys do.
No, there is. So Amazon would be Amazon is a large online shopping platform. However, there are online CBD platforms for shopping that only do CBD products. So you don't have to go to Amazon. I have one in particular I'm thinking about right now. I gotta just let me process for a minute, and I'll come up with the name of the store, and I'll make sure I give it to you guys before we hang up. But the main thing to remember is that if you want to buy, if you're looking to look at CBD, one thing, we're starting to create a marketplace. So I'm excited about that, and I'll keep you guys posted about that. And when I say that, I mean minorities for medical marijuana. But you can also go and find the top 10 CBD companies. There's a company that's a partner of ours called ROZ. ROZ Wellness. So that's Green ROZ, ROADS Wellness. And they have a huge CBD portfolio of products. They have gummies, they have tinctures, they have vape cartridges. They are in retail outlets that are maybe in your neighborhood. They also drop ship. So sometimes if you can't go to a platform like an Amazon, you may have to go to an individual distributor or I would say a manufacturer, and they will have all their products there for you. Or I know that there is a website that has variation of different companies' products, and I'll get that for you in just a few minutes.
What I would say to add to that is that you'd be surprised what is actually out there. Amazon probably is selling CBD and doesn't realize that they're selling CBD. Shopify will be another one that I think you'll see it pop on. I think where it comes down to, like you said, the nuts and bolts is how people label their products and their packages. And right now you have companies like Amazon and these others who don't quite understand it. So they don't know what their members are selling. And I know this because I've done a little bit of research about actually selling CBD on Amazon. And I know what products are out there. And I can tell you not everything out there is, Amazon doesn't know what's out there. Let me just put it that way. You can, and here's the other thing, when you know the understanding of the science and what products come from different things, what you go on Amazon right now, most of the people are marketing their product as hemp oil, and they're making the, I guess, suggestion that they're only selling hemp seed oil, which is very different from CBD oil. The hemp seed oil comes from actually cold pressing the hemp seed, but the CBD comes from the flower and everything else that you extract the actual CBD from. And so there's a gray area, a play on words that people are using. I think there'll be some consolidation of those kind of things, and maybe a little bit of a snapback at some point. But trust me, there's a lot more out there than I think people tend to know or understand.
Here's a website that you can go to. It's BUY legalmeds.com. And buylegalmeds.com, I want to check. So BUY
yeah.
legalmeds.com. So can I tell you guys that imagine if she's asking this question, there's other people asking this question. If you were someone who was maybe a possible, entrepreneur that wants to get in this industry, why don't you create your own online store and get everybody to put all their products on your store, and you get a percentage of everything? So that's the issue. If Amazon doesn't have an online store, somebody out here that's listening to me, create your own online store with CBD products. Go to the manufacturers who create the product, say, hey, I want to list you in our store, and I have a dedicated market. I'm going to service this community. It can be the LGBTQ community. It can be diverse communities. It can be just you live in Detroit and you want to just focus on Detroit proper or Michigan. You can say I will have an online store with CBD that's focused on the state of Michigan, and these are my customers, and I want to serve them. So you guys can really think about where there's niche opportunities to get yourself started. But if you go to it's buylegalmeds.com, BUY legal MEDS.com.
Mm-hmm.
Charles?
Great. Oh, yeah, great. Sorry about that. I was muted. Let's move on to our next question. We have Ann Haynes asking, have you ever heard of NICI? NICI? Looks like they do something similar to what M for MM does.
What is it again now? Spell it for me.
Just says NICI or Nietzsche maybe. NICI.
NICI.
I can't say that I've heard of them, but
I haven't.
we're there again. There's no. we shouldn't be afraid of other organizations doing what we're doing. We welcome it. We encourage them. We support them. Listen, there are not enough minorities in this space for us to have any issues with anybody else trying to help other minorities get into this space. So I'm not familiar with them, but hey, listen, if you know anyone from the organization, put us in contact. Perhaps there's some areas for us to work together.
Absolutely. And okay, another question is, I have what's the name of the CBD book sold on Amazon? Okay, I'll send you that answer in just a few minutes. Go ahead, Charles. You have a question for us?
Yes, I do. Okay. Since you talked about, what form of cannabis is legal in the state of Minnesota?
What form of cannabis? So Minnesota has a medical marijuana program. And again, all medical marijuana programs are not the same. So some programs, like in Florida, the Constitution allowed for flower. So flower is when you smoke and when you roll a joint. Well, now in Florida, there has been, the legislators said, well, you can't have flower. You can have tincture, which are drops. You can have a topical, which are what you put around on your skin on top. You can have edibles. Can we have edibles in Florida? No. Yeah, can we have edibles?
Yeah, edibles. Edibles are just coming online.
Okay. So what I want to
initially they cut out edibles and flower, but we're now moving in that direction. I don't know if any of them actually have products on the shelves right now, but I know they're moving in that direction.
Okay, so those people that are so if you're in your state, you're in Minnesota. The two things that you want to find out about: what are the medical conditions that are appropriate for me to get a medical marijuana card in Minnesota? And number two, what's the delivery system? So how can I take my medicine? I want you guys to say medicine. Repeat after me: medicine. It's not a gateway
medicine.
It is not. You are not a weed head. You are not a. We can use those vernaculars, but we in the Black community have to say, I have a medical issue. I have PTSD, and I need my medicine. I want to supply education about the medicine. I want to talk about the medicine. If it's medicine for other communities, why can't it be medicine for our community? And so that's what I would challenge. I would encourage you in Minnesota to look that up, to find out the particulars of your medical marijuana program there. Next question.
All righty. You've talked about getting in as a nurse and selling CBD. Can you talk about other ways to get into the industry besides selling stuff?
Yeah. So when you get into the industry, or when you get into a business, and I want you guys to think about this, a business is a business is a business. Okay? If you're a member of the African American Chamber of Commerce, I'll put it this way, and they have a whole laundry list of businesses. They're not saying I'm a cannabis business. You have masonaries, you have general contractors, you have architects, you have to identify your skill set, and whatever your skill set is, then figure out how do you translate that over into the cannabis industry. So if you don't have a skill set that you feel like can be translatable, that's when you might look at product. But if you have a skill set, like if you are someone that you are a great social media, you're a writer and you like writing editorial content, go to there's companies out here that are in the space who need people to write editorial content for press releases and for magazine, features. They need you. They don't have time to write it. So what you do is you say, this is my service. I can write. This is the price point for this. I can edit. This is how much it costs for me to edit. I can go and submit it and try to get magazines to pick up the editorial piece. This is how much it costs for this. You can do it as a fee for service, which means I give the service, you pay me the dollars. Or you can do it as a retainer. They can retain you, meaning they pay you $2,000 a month for you to do 20 hours of work a month. And that 20 hours or that 30 hours can consist of, you have to agree on what those terms are. So think about this. When you're talking about this industry, don't go haywire and go, I can't figure out my fit. Look inside of what you do well, and that's where your fit is. And if you have questions, individual questions, and you need to talk about it, that's why you have folks like Dashida and Eric and myself. And let me tell you something. I run an organization and I run crazy, but nothing makes me feel so much more better than when I have individual one-on-one time with people and they get an aha, like, man, I got it. I finally had someone to help me figure out where my place is. Eric, any thoughts?
Yeah, I would say in terms of how else to get into the industry outside of touching flower. Well, let me back up and say this first. I think the model you just presented is a very good model. You know, again, it goes back to something I said earlier in terms of looking at what skills you already have and how they can be transferable to this industry. But I think we have to get in our heads and we have to understand not everybody's going to make millions of dollars. It's just not going to happen. That is not going to happen. So I want you to be, you know, very, you know, realistic with your expectations, you know, but just because you can't make millions doesn't mean that you can't make a few $100,000. You can add value to your own business. You can add a new revenue stream to your own business through the cannabis industry. I'm not here selling you that you're going to become a millionaire. Not everybody's going to do that. Okay. So get that out of your head, you know, but you can certainly eat some, there's a lot of cake here, if you will, and we can all get our piece of the cake. So, but in terms of, you know, diversifying how else to get into this industry, we started off talking about stocks. Investing is a opportunity for you to do that. Stocks are volatile. This industry is volatile. So you need to invest in the stocks in a way that you're not going to lose your shirt off of it. Don't invest money that you can't afford to lose. Okay. Don't invest money that you need by the end of the year. So, you know, you need to keep that in mind when you're investing in these stocks. Many of the stocks did very well at the start of the year, and they started to tank a little bit. But they've now been able to recover all of those losses that they've made in the last couple of months, just in the last few weeks. So there's opportunities for it. People who are in the stocks, you're either going to make money in two ways. Either you're a day trader and you're playing the short game, or you're putting your money into it and you're playing the long game. You're finding good companies that are going to be profitable 10, 15, 20 years down the road. The other side of it is direct investment. Minorities for Medical Marijuana is really and truly a good way to put it, is a pipeline of professionals and folks who are either already in this industry, like Art 420, or looking to get into this industry, and they need investment. And one of the biggest issues that we have in this industry in terms of minorities is access to capital. And sometimes we don't need a whole lot of capital. It's capital that we can raise amongst, you know, folks like yourselves on this call, and, you know, others in the minority community who may not have, you know, $5 million to invest, but they may have 10, 15 that, you know, 15,000 that they want to throw in the hat on a product or a project. And so you have the direct investment, but even there's some risk, and you need to study those companies, see who's a part of the team. You know, what are they bringing to the table? Can they deliver on what they say they're going to bring? How much money do they need? What is their background and expertise? And so those are some opportunities for you. In the direct investment, though it may have some more risk to it, it also, the payout is great. If you happen to invest in one of these companies early and they hit it big, now you have, you know, equity in a company that is very valuable in the cannabis industry. So, you know, direct investment. And then I say by far the best thing you can invest in this industry is yourself.
Absolutely.
I don't know how else to say it. Invest in yourself. We need more of us thinking about how we create businesses in this space versus going to help other people make millions of dollars in this space.
I know we're running out of time. I want to encourage you guys. The question, Charles, that we have left over, can we do something for next week and address some of those questions, and we get back on here and we answer those questions? If you guys look here, I have all of the contact information for ROZ and Minorities for Medical Marijuana. Please, on social media, can you guys see the page? You have our IG, my IG handle, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, IG for the organization Minorities for Medical Marijuana, our Facebook, our Twitter page, and of course our website is www.m4mmunited.org. You guys asked excellent questions. There was one last question I want to make sure that you guys get. The book, the title of the book, the one that I highly suggest, is a great book. It's called CBD, A Patient's Guide to Medicinal Cannabis, Healing Without the High. It's on Amazon and it's $19. CBD, A Patient's Guide to Medicinal Cannabis Healing Without the High. Learn all about the effects of CBD, the endocannabinoid system, terpenes, resin, understanding exactly hemp versus cannabis, how it's extracted, understanding topicals. Read the book from a medical standpoint, pretend that you're a patient or that you know a patient, and learn that and then go from there. I want to thank you, Eric, so much for being on with me today. I appreciate you, brother. You're awesome. Just your energy and just, you man. Thank you, Charles, for helping us moderate this. We'll be back on next Friday. I'm in New Orleans, just got through speaking at Southern University yesterday. So let's just keep the movement going. And I appreciate every single one of you guys. Thank you.
Yeah. And if you guys want to connect with me, I'm also on LinkedIn, Eric Range, E-R-I-K, Eric with a K, Range, like home on the range. You can find me on LinkedIn. Also, my company, Art 420, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram. Our website is art420.com. For the website, you want to spell out the numbers 420 instead of using the numbers. But if you do a simple Google search for Art 420, you'll find us, Cannabis Inspired Art. We're traveling all over the country next year. We're looking for people to partner with to do that. So if you're interested in working with us, reach out and let's connect.